Good afternoon and welcome to Heart to Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. At Heart to Heart program, and you're listening live to KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio Live. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice. And I'm here today along with my business partner, my friend of many years, my colleague, Dr. Robert Jaffe, who's also a psychotherapist, and he's going to introduce himself further. So we're glad we're here, and we are here too for looking forward to another great program together.
We are. I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe, and welcome. We would love to hear from you during this next hour. If you have a phone available, we could take a phone call, 951-922-3532, 951-922-3532, or you can text us, email us at our program, KMET, and we will be happy to read your question or comment and respond to it. We're not going to do psychotherapy with you on the radio. We don't believe that does justice to whatever issues you have, but we can certainly talk about whatever issue or problem you bring up, and talk about it in a general way and give some thoughts about how to approach it. So please listen and respond if you can, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Exactly. And this program is for you. We love to hear from you. We love to listen to your stories. And each story gives us more in-depth, insight and understanding about what's going on, and then therefore how we can bring to the table some more of what you need really to enjoy listening to us and to enjoy your life and increase your quality of life. So with that, our phone number one more time is 951-922-3532. So Dr. Jaffe, what do we have for today? We both came back from vacation.
We did.
Right? And we went to the beautiful islands of Hawaii.
We did. The islands of Hawaii are fantastic. Anybody who has not visited them, I highly want to recommend that you put it on your bucket list and see what it's like to live in a place of paradise.
Exactly. And indeed, it's a place of paradise. For me, this time, something was significantly different. And that was, I never saw whales before.
Mm.
And so for me to see all that many whales, like we probably saw about close to 50, 60, if not more, maybe 100.
Well, I don't know whether we saw 100, but maybe 50. Yeah. And we saw them, and we saw their offspring.
Exactly.
Their offspring are born at about 1,500 pounds, and they grow up to how much did they say? Like 6,000 tons or
something like it. At least 45 tons.
4,500 tons.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we saw them. They are huge. I mean, like they're literally, unless you see them up close. I mean, as far as we could get close, of course, they are big and huge and giant and exciting and interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what was really interesting for me, how close to human they can interact with, without being, putting us in danger or anything. I mean, they are giant in their true meanings.
Right. And they said the adults can hold they are mammals, so they do breathe, and they hold their breath when they're underwater. And they said that they can hold their breath for as long as 45 minutes. I think they said 48 minutes was the record that we have been able to measure.
Right. And then for the
The babies?
The babies, they can hold their breath for like about 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes.
Right.
So that was one highlight for me, which I never had that experience before. Never else I had that experience before. And also for me to see about 300 dolphins all dancing together, that was amazing too, right? So that was another thing. And of course, my experience of, snorkeling, it was beautiful, very, very colorful and very meaningful. There's a calmness too that comes with the snorkeling. And then, of course, just driving around the islands and meeting people and just looking at the island life. I was so surprised by the calmness that I saw there and by the calmness that I felt myself. And, here we are in a big city where we wake up with the sound of, cars and all the noises in the background, and we feel that becomes normal after a while. Where in Ireland you hear, the sound of the ocean. You wake up with that sound. No matter where in the island you are, I guess you're able to hear that. And it was just so soothing, so calming, and I felt really blessed to be able to do that, and also to be with my wonderful friends and spend quality time together. And I had lots of blessings to be grateful and to have gratitude for. So I'm glad about my experience.
Yeah, we had a wonderful time, and the lifestyle in Hawaii is very, very much relaxed.
Yes.
Very slowed down.
Very simple.
Very simple, and totally different. If you went to Hawaii and then you went to New York afterward, you would feel.
Oh my God, that's a shock.
You would feel a culture shock. You would feel probably like you weren't even on the earth. And Los Angeles is not as crowded or as busy as New York, but still, in comparison to the islands, it's pretty busy, and so it's quite interesting to notice how different it can be in different parts of the world.
Yes, yes. And so one thing about the whales that I learned, which I didn't know, is how much they are actually busy having sex. All they do is just looking for, the male, whales look for a female whale. And usually a group of male, whales follows one female until one of them gets lucky. And how do they get lucky is because the female whale is the one who chooses who is going to be, her partner, I should say, right?
Correct.
And but once that sets, still the other male, won't give up, and they follow, hoping for the female to change her mind, And then, so basically, I use a term which is not a radio type, but basically we were looking at lots of male fish, giant fish with lots of testosterone.
Lots of testosterone.
Lots of testosterone,
right.
which that was true, because the high level of testosterone that they have drives them in a way that they move, in the way that interact with the female whale, and that's the way of life for them. And when I was looking at that, I was thinking, well, and I don't know if that's really appropriate to say on the radio, and I'm going to say it. Would any of them get any erectile dysfunction? Or how would that be?
Yeah.
But it was interesting that how much focus there was on the amount of testosterone that these giant fish, male fish, carry with them, and how much the focus is on having sex and finding a mate for themselves, and that's all they do: eat and have sex and make babies and continue their journey.
Yeah. And they eat approximately 1,000 pounds a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000
Exactly.
pounds a day.
So that's why we have shortage of fish.
Yeah. So very, very interesting. And of course, the other thing about whales is that they are cold water animals.
Yes.
And so they live in the Arctic and in the Antarctic. Um, and they live and survive and have sex there. But they come down to Hawaii in the warm waters in order to give birth.
Yes.
Because it's easier on the baby whales.
Exactly. And the reason that male whales follow the female whales, because the female whale, after gives birth, immediately she's able to have another child.
Mm-hmm.
So the male whales don't want to lose any chance.
That's right.
I mean, that's incredible. You know,
Yeah.
how their mind works and how they are able to follow a female. And then we were told that for every 10, 20, or 20 male whales, there's only one female.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that.
Yeah, some high percentage.
Yeah.
I don't remember either, but yeah.
So in that category, females are so damn popular.
They are.
So.
And what we just told you is a whale of a tale.
Whale of a tale. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Having said all of that, I thought, maybe we can talk about a condition for men that is universal. Mm-hmm. Some may experience it, some may not. Mm-hmm. Some they may experience it at the onset of having sex, and some may experience that later on in life, mm-hmm. right? And that condition is erectile dysfunction. And I came across a recent article that was published by my colleague, let's see, his name is Shaiji, and then this was published in the Journal of Patient Experience. This is just published, volume 9, and and I thought that this has pretty good information based on my own research, actually. And I thought, it's important to share some of that. The title of the article is Breaking the Ice of Erectile Dysfunction Taboos. And this article is a focus on clinician-patient communication, which is exactly in the line of, what I do, what I have done for female population.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And, it's interesting to see that how a sexual dysfunction for men called erectile dysfunction has everything to do with culture. Mm-hmm. And has everything to do, for the most part, with how a physician is able to communicate with their male patient, and then how these situations can be resolved or can be treated or can be overlooked or not even reported. Right. Because of cultural factors, mm-hmm. right? So we just received our notice of commercial break, and I like to go over this once we come back.
And feel free to call us, 951-922-3532. We'll see you in a couple of moments.
You have no idea.
I do now.
You do now. So welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart to Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. And for those of you who are just joining us, we have barely started to talk about a sexual dysfunction for men called erectile dysfunction, and we will go over the what's going on with that, what that is all the way, and what are some of the roadblocks for treatment, why is it revealed or not, what are the myths of society about it, and there's so much going on in that area, and I got this information from a very recently published article with my colleague that Dr. Sheiji, and it was published in the Journal of Patient Experience, Volume 9, just came out at ResearchGate, and it talks about, and the reason it got my attention is because it's the same line of my own research about the impact of culture on female sexuality. This is the impact of culture on male sexuality. So, gentlemen, this is all for you tonight, and I hope that you tune in and you listen to it. And it doesn't mean that every man has erectile dysfunction, but some do at the onset of, having this sex for the first time. Some people experience it later on, and some men, they just here and there they may experience that. So we want to know what's going on with that, and what's the I'm going to read from the article. It says erectile dysfunction is a common yet complex problem facing men and their partners worldwide. It continues to be an underreported issue despite its high prevalence and negative impact, as well as the availability of successful treatments. So one of the main reasons for such a problem is the stigma surrounding it as a complaint and the deep-seated fear to discuss it. So the article, focuses on the reasons behind the taboo and the dilemma behind erectile dysfunction, reporting it, and then what does it mean to for a man to wanting to discuss that with their physicians, with their partners, usually. And why this is important is because it impacts relationship instantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those conditions that it's a deal breaker for marriage. It's a deal breaker for, for relationship, for an ongoing relationship. And we know that, in our line of work, we know that there are men that they don't want to discuss or accept that they may have an erectile dysfunction problem.
Right. Yeah, and when you say it's a deal breaker, we're saying it can be a deal breaker.
It can be, yes.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a deal breaker.
It doesn't have to be, no.
Right.
It doesn't have to be. Right. And so the article defined sexual erectile dysfunction, or short, they call it ED, is defined as a consistent or recurrent inability to attain and or to maintain penile erection sufficient for sexual performance. And so, yes, and so that's basically the fundamental, definition of that. And it could be a biological factor as a causation of it, or it could be a psychological factor, or it could be both.
Correct. And a biological, as in sex is a psychosocial phenomena,
right,
which we now know is true, and biology usually plays the smallest part.
Right.
Right. Same thing with erectile dysfunction. Usually, in most cases, the physical and the biological aspect of erectile dysfunction is not the primary cause.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So some may ask, why is this important to talk? So we ask this question: why is sex so important?
Mm-hmm.
For the majority of people, some form of sexual expression is an integral part of a full and healthy life. And we know that, having sex is a basic, human right and an important part of life. And we know, the two of us know that how, sex is an important part of relationship between two consenting, partners.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it is actually the second most powerful drive in a
right.
human being. The first, of course, being survival, but the second being reproduction and sexuality.
Right.
And we're all born sexual,
mm-hmm.
but not all to the same degree. And what science has now recognized is that everybody is bisexual.
Right.
And when I say that, people's eyes get big and they go, well, not me. I'm not attracted to, if it's a man, they say, I'm not attracted to other men. If it's a woman, well, I'm not attracted to other women. And I say to them, no, you may not recognize that you are. And it may also be a very small part of you that is. But what we've learned is that we are all attracted to everybody else to some degree. And that means that people who are heterosexual, meaning that they are attracted to people of the opposite sex, that's the majority of people. And they may be 90%, 98%, 80%. And people who are homosexual, meaning people who are attracted to the same sex, that's generally about 10%, 10 to 20% of the population. But all of us, to some degree, are attracted to the same sex, but we don't think about it. And also, we have a lot of shame, which
Exactly.
keeps us from connecting with it. But if you want evidence of that, all you have to do is take a look in the prisons. And you see women's prisons, women having sex with women, and men's prisons, men having sex with men. How could that happen if there was no attraction, right? So there obviously is.
There is, yes. So there are some psychological problems that are associated with erectile dysfunctions, and men, they may not even be aware of that, such as chronic depression, inability, liability to loss of self-esteem, feeling of worthlessness, losing, workplace attention, and experiencing loss of concentration. And also, we know that the secondary type of ED, secondary type of erectile dysfunction, so there is a primary type, which is at the onset of having sex, a male partner may feel not able to maintain an erection. Mm-hmm. And then the secondary is that happens later on in life, after years of or a number of having successful sex. Mm-hmm. So one of the factor that is associated to, physical condition that's associated with erectile dysfunction is diabetic, and then stress, and then metabolic problem, heart conditions, and just a stress of life, and or many incidents that happens, in life. Mm-hmm. Can cause, secondary type of erectile dysfunctions. Mm-hmm. And what happens as a result, a male partner, because they're not able to maintain and perform sexual act the way that they want to, or the way that is because of ED satisfactory to their partner, they generally feel guilty, may feel unwanted, and they may even feel they're not attractive anymore. They become shameful, they are worrisome, that what can happen to their life, and crisis in relationship can happen. And basically it disrupts quality of life.
Mm-hmm. And a synonym that is often used for erectile dysfunction is impotence.
Impotence, yes.
And impotence, of course, means the difficulty or inability to get and maintain an erection. But impotence is now used in psychological terms, in terms of people feeling ineffective.
Right.
So they say, I feel impotent, meaning that I can't affect what's going on, that I'm powerless, and I no longer have any power. And of course, the penis is associated throughout society and throughout culture as a man's having power, a man's having virility,
right,
and his ability to penetrate and to satisfy the woman.
Exactly. Yes, and then. I have seen in my own practice men with erectile dysfunction who don't even understand and that they actually have this condition.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we bring it up that there is a possibility for having erectile dysfunction, they get upset, they get surprised, they say they never had a problem. Why are we giving them a label out of nowhere?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this group of men that they can't realize, or they never realize, or they don't believe that they have a condition called erectile dysfunction or impotence, is because nobody brought it to their attention before. I'm talking about their sexual partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? Many women, they are in particular women of who don't have sexual experiences prior their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know about these conditions, what is normal, what is abnormal, what is erectile dysfunction, or how long a man needs to keep an erection,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're not familiar with sexual behaviors, they're not familiar with their own sexuality, and they're not familiar with orgasm or any aspect of sexuality. What the male partner brings to the table in their sexual activity, they consider it as normal. And also, for a group of women, there is a belief that sex is about what men wants.
Mm-hmm.
So once men, reach their orgasm, so they think that that's it. That was their role, to just be there.
Right.
And this is a sad, sad awareness for women to realize that how much they have sacrificed themselves because of lack of knowledge about their sexuality.
Well, lack of knowledge and, of course, incorrect knowledge.
And incorrect knowledge.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Or not incorrect knowledge, incorrect beliefs.
Beliefs, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That they have learned through culture, through through girlfriends and other people who also don't understand about sexuality.
Right.
So there's a lot of myths that are going on about what should be expected, and if what is to be expected is less than satisfying, and the person accepts that's what's going to be, then the person will be less than satisfied.
Exactly. And then they don't understand that what makes them feeling, sad, what makes them feel tired, what makes them feel depressed. They don't understand that that's because they basically don't have a healthy sexual, experience and
Mm-hmm.
healthy sexual relationship. And men, not knowing, not being brought to their attention, they wouldn't know sometimes that, how they are, they're having a very unhealthy sexual life.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how this condition happens, that men may not even know that they have a condition called erectile dysfunction, right? So this article has done a very good job identifying those factors. So there are 4 categories here. And the first category is patient-related factors as barriers in erectile dysfunction, taboo, and dilemmas,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the article, has talked about what are some of the factors that men don't come forward and they don't talk about their issue,
Mm-hmm.
right? The first one is embarrassment, stigma about own sexual life. So if a man comes in certain culture, especially collective cultures, and talk about, guess what, I have erectile dysfunction, he would probably be the laughing stock of the whole community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have seen many of that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And he's not man enough, he's not strong enough, and they come up with lots of jokes, and negative comments.
And I would say embarrassment/shame.
Yes.
Right, because to be embarrassed is a milder form of shame, but to be shamed can really injure a person's self-esteem, and of course, if other people are involved in shaming that person can then feel excommunicated from the population that they grew up in.
Exactly.
So, and that goes to an issue of survival.
Right. Right. And that brings up the next point.
Mm-hmm.
Is being inherently private and sensitive issue to men.
Mm-hmm.
No man wants to reveal that, yes, openly, yes, that they experience erectile dysfunction.
Right, and they're of course they're shamed and made fun of by calling them names.
Names. Yes.
Limp dick.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
like a shameful name, right? I
Yes.
have a limp dick.
Yes.
Mhm.
Exactly. And then, misconception of the condition being a normal process of aging, and therefore no treatment is available for that. So let's talk about this more after our commercial break, because I know that there are out there so many men that they have kept this to themselves as a secret, where in fact there are solutions for it. There are treatments for it, and they don't have to live a life of secret and then keep all that to themselves, and not allow themselves to enjoy life. So we join you shortly after a few commercial breaks.
Please stay with us.
Welcome back to our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart to Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio Live. We're talking about erectile dysfunction, a condition that globally impacts male sexual function and also relationship as a result. So before commercial break, we talked about some of the taboo and dilemmas, and then patient-related factors as barriers to discuss erectile dysfunction. There is so many more, but I'm bringing the attention now to the physician-related factors. That what happens to physicians that during their checkups they don't even address that with their male patients.
They don't even ask.
They don't even ask.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them is the barriers is feeling constrained by tightly scheduled appointment, not paying attention to such an issue, which is absolutely true. That's what I have in my own research. Not considering erectile dysfunction a serious priority when compared with other conditions associated with high morbidity and mortality. So that's also true. I mean, many physicians are saying, well, I have a heart condition to deal with, not erectile dysfunction,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what they don't know actually, or they don't consider, or they don't want to discuss, is that erectile dysfunction may have to do with the medication that the patient is taking for heart disease.
Right.
Right? So that's not discussed. And then considering erectile dysfunction as a quality of life matter, not a medical issue. And then not being comfortable talking about sex or sex-related issue with their patients. And these are all of my findings as well. And then misconceptions or feeling that questions related to sexual satisfactions may be intrusive or embarrassing, and also lack of knowledge about sexual health and its management, lack of expertise. And then female physicians may not be comfortable to discuss male sexual dysfunction with their patients due to their physicians' culture and religious background, which these are all of them absolutely true and absolutely spot on, because these are all the things that we are continuously researching to see how we can help physicians to overcome these issues. And but there is so much that each and every one of us can do. I mean, I'm doing my share, you're doing your share. We're educating couples, we're helping men to understand their ED, and then accept that as a condition that needs attention, and in so many cases it can be resolved. So what do we suggest for the to break the ice of the ED taboo and the dilemma? So as a healthcare provider, ourselves. We have some responsibility in doing that, right? And that is the first rule, is to understand the patient's ongoing psychological issues.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
This is really crucial.
Well, yeah. And I think this is also a good time, even though we're talking about men, to bring up the fact that you have developed a sexual questionnaire for women.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is something that can be very helpful to women when they go to see their physicians, in terms of helping women understand their own sexuality, their own level of satisfaction,
right.
Which can also be translated into helping the man if
right.
the women are willing to say something about it to the physician. That can be an icebreaker.
Exactly. Maybe we need to do the same one for men.
I don't see why not.
Exactly. So maybe that's the more work ahead of us, which is a good thing to do. So one other dilemma is that how ourselves as healthcare providers, we're establishing a good relationship with our patients so that they can trust us and they can openly tell us what's going on.
Correct.
Right. And that's the second one. And then be flexible, right? To deeply understand the values and beliefs of each patient, including cultural and religious beliefs, because this is so crucial. Because, like I said, some men, they even don't know that they have this, and they think based on their culture, based on their experiences, based on their interaction and conversation with everybody else around them, they think what they have is normal, because sex is about men, and a woman doesn't have anything to say about their satisfaction, right? So we need to understand the culture and the religious, and then work around that, and find a way to help them. If we are meeting, this is what I do, this is what you do. When we have an initial meeting, with a patient with ED, we do that in a quiet environment without any interruption. It's a sensitive issues for men, and we definitely need to, pay respect to the privacy. For example, when we want to discuss that with the couple, we have to ask the male partner consent, that whether we can invite the partner in the room with them so that we can talk about the issue, because they may not want their partner to know that they have an ED, right? And that's one of the reasons that men don't bring it up, because they think that that's a shameful thing that they are experiencing. They are not man enough, and they're afraid of losing their relationship. So they don't want their female or other any kind of a partner that they have to be joined in that discussion.
And actually, yeah, that's also very impacted by culture.
Yes.
You and I were just discussing somebody that in Persian culture, who had difficulty in her marriage with her husband, who apparently had some ED issues, and she was very offended and took it personally, and said, that she would no longer allow that to be in her life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, of course, is the opposite of being loving and sensitive.
Exactly. Yes. Right. And then some doctors, some healthcare practitioners, when they talk to their patients about sensitive issues such as this one, they don't understand that patients don't know the terminologies. Patients don't know the big vocabularies, and they don't need to know. That's not their job, right? Those vocabularies are only for the practitioners, so that they can communicate among themselves in a clinical way. But when it comes to our conversation with our patients, we just need to use everyday lay language, because that's how we relate to each other, essentially. Even among clinicians, what's in the book, we don't bring it out in our own conversations every day, right? So we need to be mindful of that, and also to be mindful of moral values and moral rules of a patient, uh, and also, the consent is very important to wanting to share information. Uh, so also, we as a provider, we need to be mindful, and as a patient you need to be mindful that not every practitioner can be specialized in erectile dysfunction or in sexual matter altogether. So it's okay that when you discuss it with your physician or with your psychologist, psychotherapist, any healthcare provider that you discuss it with, uh, be mindful and be okay with receiving referrals.
Correct.
Because you want to get to the right practitioner in order to get the proper help, right?
I remember when I was with you and we were doing the research into your study about female sexuality, that we interviewed a physician. What was he, like a neurologist?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a neurologist, and we were and he was he wasn't he was American, but he was also
Asian.
Asian. He was
Yes.
an Asian American, yeah. And we asked him, how much time is actually devoted in medical school to understanding the psychological aspects of sexuality, and he said almost zero.
Yeah.
And he said, and he said, and so when he's doing a neurological examination, he doesn't talk about sexuality. He doesn't talk about sexual performance, except as it relates to any neurological issue. And he said that he thinks that medical schools need to be more aware and provide more education in that area, but that physicians are usually so involved in their own area of specialty, none of which has to do with sexuality.
Yeah.
That even somebody who specializes in obstetrics, or for men who specializes in penile functioning, generally are not talking about psychological issues.
They're not, no. And then most focus of sexual health care is on, reproductive care, and they think that that's about it.
Right.
But, this is the article has lots of wonderful information, and I wish there was enough time to go over all of it. But, in the conclusion, it states clearly that erectile dysfunction is common yet underreported due to the stigma surrounding it. It has negative psychological outcomes for men and their partners. The silence of ED, erectile dysfunction, is governed by both patient and physician factors. The strategies and techniques are available and should be practiced to engage the patients. Physicians should continue to improve their communication skills. Continued education is a key to overcome erectile dysfunction, that's underreporting and stigmas, which will eventually aid to break the ice of its taboo and dilemma. And I hope that happens. I mean, like you said, we're doing that for female population, and we hope that by the questionnaire that we have online, that they can break the ice, they can understand, what's missing for them. I remember that when I shared the questions with a patient, with a volunteer, she said, and she's an American woman, and she's a very single, active American woman. She said, "Oh my gosh, I never thought I can even ask these questions, and they have been in my mind all the time."
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other thing I want to say is we've spent the time today talking about the problem, and because of time limitation, we haven't really gotten into any of the solution.
Right.
But we do have a program coming up next week, same time, 4 o'clock on Thursday. Perhaps we can expand a little bit on this and go into some of the treatments and solutions for this.
Exactly, because this is, an important aspect of life. It adds to the quality of life, or it can take away from the quality of life, and we don't want that for anyone. And we know that there are a considerable amount of men that suffer from that, and therefore their relationship suffers as a result of that. There are solutions, and solutions all the time are expanding. So there is no reason to hide it. It's not a shameful condition. It's just like any other condition. If somebody has high blood pressure, they come forward and say, "Oh, no salt, please. I have high blood pressure."
Right.
Right. But with this one, needs to get to that level, so that we all can have, a joyful, happy, relaxing, comfortable, lifestyle. And sexuality is an important aspect of life, one that it is overlooked. I mean, we're looking at society, we think sexuality is out there and open. Realistically, is not. That's only commercial about, marketing, but it's not what really sexuality is all about.
And of course, now within the last 20 years, and we can talk about this more next time perhaps, they've developed medication for erectile dysfunction, such as Viagra, Cialis, and others, which has been very, very helpful. But also those don't address the quality of the sex or the quality of the relationship, and often don't address the desire to be sexual.
And also don't address the psychological, impact that this condition may have on a male partner.
Correct. So I think this is something that we can expand on a little bit perhaps next week.
Absolutely. I love to do that, and we love to hear from you. So please call us 951-922-3532. Also, you can email us your question, and we won't share your name. We won't share any information. We may borrow your question, because any question you bring to the table is a general question for public. And we do appreciate your contribution and trusting us and joining us in this hour. And we wish you nothing but love until we see you next time.
And remember, all you need is love. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.